He said, if I tell it to my father,
with the
He
kids see.
wouldn't accept
yeah,
it.
The person
yeah,
who
yeah,
involves the Rebbe, and
yeah,
then
yeah.
so I
Yeah,
understand it because he lived it. It's not he living this.
that's beautiful. That's beautiful. It's just beautiful to see.
He's all about children.
That's from.
He's about children.
So not just about children. I love people.
You know,
The people that hate poor people. When you see poor people in the street, they speak at them.
it sounds like he's a Talmud of a year.
Exactly. And his Lashon is so clear and Yiddish is so.
Hey, that's Hashem Yiddish.
Yeah. He's teaching Yiddish.
American?
No, Israeli.
He's all Israeli.
Israeli, right? Speaks Hebrew.
Yeah.
How long is he about children?
No, when he was a young boy.
At least 1 year.
Yeah.
Years?
Yeah, he's 40, he's 40, 41, 42.
And what is he? He's a Mashpir?
Mashpia in Torah, yeah.
He could talk to Bochen because he could tell him, all the Narishkeit. I've been there.
That's unbelievable.
About took an outsider. Sure.
Yeah,
Most
a
of
guy
the
like
Mashpim
this.
in Chabad is like this.
A guy like this, I mean, I
Most of the Mashpim, yeah.
can't go wrong with a guy like this. Can't go wrong.
It's always like in the talks after rehabilitation. Who is the counselor? Who was there and came out. Me and you cannot be there because you don't understand the language.
They have. I mean, my brothers are Mashpia together. Some kitzah, like they have.
Completely different, but I'm saying most of them.
It's beautiful.
Usually, such traditional subjects that they can't.
I know. It's impossible to undo. So it's a koyach. It's a koyach to be able to undo and rewire. It's such a koyach. So I enjoyed it very much.
Come on, impossible.
Come on, impossible.
The way you learn the Sichos from the Rebbe down to earth, not as a scholar, as a nice word. He lived it.
Yeah.
He living it.
It's beautiful. So I enjoyed it very much. Baruch Hashem. I think we had a beautiful Yitzkislev.
Oh, you're taking a risk by inviting somebody never here because you don't know how.
Yeah, he's not on the circuit of the speakers. Not at all.
He's not running for it. He's not.
It was falling off his tongue.
Hold on the speaker.
So basically, not is going to make him.
No,
he's not into it.
He's not into the. He couldn't. At the end, when I gave him a check, he didn't understand what it is. He couldn't. Why am I giving him a check? He didn't understand. He thought I'm giving him for the taxi. Later, when he realized, he texted me like he doesn't understand.
He didn't come for
it. Baruch Hashem. I wish we could. We used to have a nicer Oilum Sunday night. It's mamish so. I think it's. They say you need the jalke. It's a Russian word. It's a zag geschmack. The Rebbe's Torah. I feel like every week when we learn, it gives Sai the pshat that makes the story alive, and Sai the lesson in the Pnimius HaTorah and sometimes in Yom Mufloim. I don't know what to do, but anyway. Let's get straight into it. Here, the Rebbe has a sikha about the Halom that Yosef did for Pari. So let's read quickly inside, and I have copies. There's some of them in Fortune, whatever I could get onto one page. Mine sheva poris acheres oilos acharein mine oiros magre v'dakas boser v'tamoidne eitzel haporos al tzfasa yoir. So he sees in his dream this poris, fat, good ones. Tirena ba'ocher, Rashi says, when everything is going good, the people are nice to each other. And then there's really bad ones, and they're standing next to each other al tzfasa yoir. V'tachalna haporis rois amare v'dakas boser isheves haporis yifois amares v'abriz v'yiket pare. Vayishav vayachol l'shenes v'hine sheva shibolim alos b'kon echad t'briz v'toivus v'hine sheva shibolim dakish tuvus kon tzemes achaveim v'tivlana shibolim adakas sheva shibolim abdriz v'malois v'yikas pari v'nech. So Rashi says v'nechla means now he has something in his hand that he has to deal with. V'hi ba'boika v'tikva v'ruche v'ishlach v'ikra as kol chartuma v'misraim as kol chamer v'izapa parol hamas chalema v'im poiser oisam la'fari. No one could explain it to Pari. Rashi says, look right away at Rashi here, even though I have it in the booklet, in the paper. He couldn't, whatever they said didn't make sense to him. וידבר שר המשכם אז פרי למר אז חתו אני מזכיר היום פרי קוצב על עבודה ואיתן אייסי במשפט בייסר שר הטבוק מייסי וייסר אויפה הנחלום החלום בלילה אחד הוא איש כפיס החלום חלום ושון עיתונו נער עברי עבד לשר הטבוכם ונספר לו ויפטר לו נסחלום עשינו איש כחלום מפוסר ויקרא שפוסר לנו כן היה אויסי אישי והקני ואיסי סולו ואיש לפרד ויקרא יוסף אז יוסף יצאו מן הבור ויגלח וחלף סמלויסון ויבוא אל פרוי ויאמר פרי אל יוסף חלום חלמת פייסי נויסי ואני שמעתי לך עליהם תשמח חלום לפטר יוסף. We're just starting. We're in Mikeitz, Pasuk Yud Dalet. Yeah. ויאמר פרי אל יוסף חלום חלמת פייסי נויסי ואני שמעתי לך עליהם תשמח חלום לפטר יוסף ויוסף אז פרי למר בלודוי אליקים יענה אז שלום פרי וידבר פרי אל יוסף בחלומי הנני אומר על צבא סיור והנה מן אוילס שבע פורס פיריס בוסר בפייס תואר ותרנה באוכו והנה שבע פורס אחרת אוילס אחרים דלס ולוז תואר מאוד ורקס בוסר לא ראיסי כהנה בכל ארץ מצרים לרויה ותחלנה פורס הרקס ורויס אי שבע פורס הראשונס הבריאוס ותבוא אל קרבנו ולא נוידה כבוא אל קרבנו מראה לה כאשר בתחילה ויקץ. And some of the Farshim say that in his when he tells over his Cholim, it's not exactly what we see in the original Psukim. He wanted to test him if Ruach Elikim boy, he didn't tell him every detail. And Yosef figured out, because Yosef had Ruach HaKodesh, Yosef knew. But in Pshat, it doesn't have to be this way, but if you see a few things that the it's numerous dakis shlufes kodem shem sachareim v'tivlana shabolam adakis sheva shabolam tevis v'emel achar tumim ve'im magidli. No one's telling me, they're telling me things, but they don't make sense to me. V'yoyim Yosef al pari chalem pari echadu eis asher alakim ois higil pari. The two dreams are really the same, he's telling him. Sheva poris atoyves sheva shonim hein. Sheva shabolam atoyves sheva shonim hein. Chalem echadu, it's one column. V'sheva poris harakes v'aroyis oilos achrem sheva shonim heima v'sheva shabolam harekes v'shtu v'shonim yu shneva shnei rog hu adova shedibarti al pari asher alakim oisa heres pari the Eibush shonim pari what's going to be hine sheva shonim boz sava godel b'chol eretz Mitzrayim im v'komu sheva shnei rog achrem v'nishka kol asov v'eretz Mitzrayim v'chil arnova es orov. The Rashi says v'lo yivodu pisran v'lo yinoida ki bol kerbena, that when the fat cows got swallowed by the skinny cows, it wasn't noticeable. The pisser and acholim is that not only is going to be 7 good years and 7 bad years, 7 fat years and 7 skinny years, that in the 7 skinny years, it won't be noticeable that there were ever 7 fat years that existed. Therefore, the best idea you could do is ויתב בין הפר ובין כל עבודה ויאמר פרי אל עבודה הנמצא חזז איש אשר רוח אלוהים בוי. And then he made him a Mishnah Lamelech. Yeah.
First question I have is
has to be on the issue we're learning tonight.
Yeah. So why did Pari believe him? Because he's saying that like Hashem is Pari. So he puts Pari in the thing that wow, Hashem comes to me.
Okay? If you think that's the way,
that's the first.
Okay.
The second thing is that if you look even in our contemporary times, what did they do in Russia? It was a Yid who was running the thing, but he wasn't in a Chalmik.
Right, exactly. Exactly.
It's the same thing, history repeating itself.
Exactly.
Now there are 2 points.
Very good. Very good. And the first point actually we'll deal with that first point. Rashi, before we go into Rashi or anything, the Rebbe asks, and we'll learn it in the Barbanel. Barbanel is very geschmack. Like we said last week, he starts the Parsha, usually 12 to 18 kashas, then he starts to rationalize everything. It's very, you see, he wrote his Pirush in a time when he needed that type of Pirush. Okay. Simple kasha. That the Rebbe had a call. Sometimes Rashi, if he doesn't ask, that means that he expects that you, the Malamed, will already be able to explain to the children based on the Mahalach in general of Rashi to answer this kasha. And if it's a kasha that Rashi doesn't know how to answer, you say, "Ain't there." What's so brilliant? What's so brilliant? What's so brilliant about this Ptron HaChalom? We see already a lot of chalomas in the Torah, a lot of chalomas, and we spoke about it last week. If there's a ladder, they're going up, going down. Malachim are going up, malachim are coming down. They're all bowing to him. Yosef also had 2 dreams. They're bowing. Oh, they're going to bow to him. What's so complicated? The fat cows, they're good and fat. The skinny, they're skinny. Fat, skinny. And 7, what would you think? It's 7 days? Obviously, it can't be 7 days, because if you're talking about, why are we talking about Poros and Shibolim? Because a Pora, Moilam loikarasi ishti beisi. La Parosi sodi. The main thing in those days of a Pora was it could plow the fields. So first there was the Chalom about the Pora, which plows, and then about the growing. Now, how many times a year does it grow? Once a year. So when you have number 7, and it couldn't be 7 days, so it'll be 7 years. What's so brilliant? Why couldn't all the Khartoumim Mitzrayim think of such a simple pisra? They're all goyish kep. They all couldn't call Khartoumim Mitzrayim, call Chachomel. No one could figure out a little Yingala, a Jewish little child. Tell you.
They say that it was 7 daughters.
Oh, let's read what they said. Rashi says, they gave a pisor, but it didn't make sense to pare. Their voice did not go into his ears. He did not take any pleasure in their translation of the dream. They said, 7 daughters you'll give birth, and 7 daughters you'll bury. So it didn't go into his ears. Let's just skip the Ramban and the Barbanel, the Medrash Rabbah.
It's embarrassing for the girls. They call them cow.
Pashtus.
What would be any other?
Yeah, well, what's the brilliance of it? They couldn't think of it, and then he makes him a Mishnah Lamelach. What was the brilliant nakuda over here? The Medrash Rabbah says, "V'yishlach v'yikra Rebishua de Sichnin b'shem Reb Levi Poiser in Oyo Oiser v'shelo Oyo Yikoyel Nichnas b'Yoda Sheva Poros Atoyves Sheva Bonas Atamelik Sheva Poros Heroes Sheva Bonas Atakoyve V'chein Omru Sheva Shibalam Atoyves Sheva Malchus Atamachabesh Sheva Shibalam Heroes Sheva Eparchius Murdesbach." So they said they had a pisor. The first dream that Pisaron is that the 7 fat cows are 7 daughters. By the way, someone just asked, why is the connection of daughters to cows? The pashtos. Daughters over here are cows that are not shoyed, a pora, a female. So the male has a shaykhis. A female is a shaykhis with a daughter, not with a son. If it would be a sharnak, it would be a son. So they said the 7 fat cows and the 7 skinny cows are 7 daughters that are the fat cows is you're gonna have nachas, and the skinny cows is you're gonna have tzad. Veloye voda that it'll the agmas nefesh that he's gonna have, the extreme agony a person has when he loses a loved one is so big Even though he's going to have 7 sons, but okay. So that's what they said. The second thing was that the Sheva Shibolim is he's going to conquer 7 kingdoms, and 7 kingdoms will rebel against him. The Rebbe says, what's Rashi doing over here? If he wants to say in they had explanations that didn't make sense to Pari. If you don't want to quote the example that the Medrash give, don't quote. If you want to quote, why are you saying a half a thing? Not only are you saying a half a thing, you're saying different than the Medrash. The Medrash is saying that the 2 dreams, each one had a different meaning. One is 7 daughters will be buried and 7 daughters will be born, and the other one is 7 kingdoms he will conquer and 7 kingdoms will rebel against him. But Rashi not only so Hainu, both dreams according to Rashi. So what you misquoting a Medrash. Why? Why is Rashi doing that? The Shaila that bothers the Rebbe is what is the brilliance that all the Chachamim couldn't understand, and only Yosef HaTzadik understood. What's going on? Let's read quickly the Ramban. The Abarbanel really deals with this question. As the Rebbe points out, that the Abarbanel is, even though it's very rationalized and it's very gishmak, and every parsha Abarbanel is very gishmak, but that's not Pshuta Shamikra. It's obvious that it's not Pshuta Shamikra. Let's read the Ramban and the Abarbanel. The Ramban is just a little detail of many Meforshim, but it's nice to see. They were very close to each other to say that the 7 and 7 years will not have an interruption in between. This part he didn't tell over to Yosef. Many Meforshim say he didn't tell it over to Yosef. He dafka withheld a few details of the dream because he wanted to know, and that's how he knew that no, everyone deserves to get a paper here. We wanted to know if Yosef really that was the brilliance of Yosef. He says maybe the Torah wasn't and Pshuta Shemikra makes sense that the Torah wasn't chash that in the beginning the Torah told you some details. And Pare later added a few details that the Torah didn't tell you originally, but he also told them the other details. So in Pshat, you could say that there's nothing unusual here. But Achalna Aporis al daitu simen sheyochlu shnei arav shnei sasavim. Zel lamed Yosef lemel Pare. Yikwatzu es kol oichel ashana matovis v'oichel epikodem v'aretz Hashem shnei arav kirosh Aporis v'shebol matovis tavoy al kerev aroz ve'inen eitza ki La yoytz hamelach nasnur, agapisen achalon amakein. Ein v'nishkach kol asav v'leivod asav episen v'leinoida kivo kerbeno marein ra. Kiro shaloi b'chilosam briz v'toives rak oilhem lamicha. Ilu leochlos and meses bekachashem. V'loi kidivir Rashi shama v'nishkach kol asav upisen and habelia. Rashi says that when when the fat cows swallow the skinny cows, the pshat is that the pain in the later 7 years of famine will be so big that everyone will forget the pleasure of the fat years. And the Ramban says no, that Rashi is wrong. And he says the pshat is that the meaning of the dream was that just like the fat cow, the skinny cows would die. But if they had something to eat, Baruch Hashem, that's why they didn't die. That's why Yosef gave advice to Pari. Because Bechal, who asked Yosef? This guy is the king of Mitzrayim is calling Yosef from the boy, and he's asking him to translate a dream. He translated the dream.
Go back to jail.
Right. All of a sudden, like I want an eitzah give it.
1 second, let me tell you.
Who asked you to give eitzahs? So what was it? Yosef thought, look, this is my one chance in life. If I give him a good... What's going on? So the Ramban says, but what would Rashi say? It's a guta kasha. It's a guta kasha. It's a chutzpah l'chura. Let's read the Barbanel. V'im kein, ha'chochma sheba b'pisan ha'chalem esa'elu, k'hutz chalem e'lelekim pesarena. So, Machlal, the Barbanel, I'm quoting a page from 25 here. The Barbanel says that there's three types of dreams. There are dreams like most people have. What did you have for supper? You had chicken for supper, or you had chopped liver for supper? What's the difference? I'll tell you the difference. What kind of dream you're going to have is the difference. If you chopped liver for supper, forget it. It's a bad dream. If you had scrambled eggs, there's hope you'll have a good night's sleep. So the Chalom is stam, because the koyach hadimyan, it's narishkeit. A dream is just mirhura de like the Gemara says. Then he says a second level of dreams is that there's a little bit of a spiritual intuition that a person has. And that's where he goes into a lot of stories in the Gemara about this person that was, he used to get paid for translating dreams. Abai always paid him with an extra tip, and he always got a good... Barhedia, exactly. And, Yishakayach. And Rava didn't pay him, and he always told him nasty ones. And then Rava realized that it was, what was good? Yeah, the last Perek in Barachas. And
I don't remember what was up.
It's last Perek in Barachas. So we learned it here. And then he pursed the Bahedia.
Okay.
He said that because that's the Gemara says it's to be close to the real dream. It's a third level of dream is the Novi or Halom, which is mamish a gilul from the Eibishter. Okay. He says the Chartum in Mitzrayim never believed in the third.
100% of it.
100%. He says, then he goes into how are you going to know if it's a real dream or fake dream? So he says, we'll read it inside in a second. And then he says, the Chatum in Mitzrayim believed in A and B, not in C. They believed most dreams is just he ate chopped liver, so that's why he was on a roller coaster. Shine. He was on a roller coaster, and then he was also swimming. So he put the roller coaster and the lake together. Shine. Then the other chalamas, they also believed that sometimes there's a spiritual intuition. They didn't believe that there's a gila lakus from the Eibishter. That's why when they translate the Pari, they would think, what could Pari think? They're trying to go into Pari's mind. What did he have? Scrambled eggs or chopped liver? What could Pari think? What do you think Pari's thinking about?
Holy cow.
What can a Pari think about? Conquering kingdoms, losing kingdoms, having children, losing children. About himself. They didn't believe he was thinking about this. Yosef HaTzadik realized that this was a mechuvendik dream, and we'll read it inside in a second how he knew it. And therefore, his brilliance was to know that this was a heavenly message. Let's read it inside quickly, the Barbanel. I just cut 3 pieces from, like I said, 25 pages. In came החוכמה שבו בפיסן החלמס האלה שהוא צריך חלמר הלא ללוקים פיסיינו ואמם חלם פערים עבור מניין שלא יצטרך על פיסן אז בישהו בידוע שהפורס יופס הבריס מוירל שיש עשב הרבה בורס ביוכל ויסעדנו בו והוא עשווה ורוס מוירס בהיפך לרוב לכן השמול מטייבס מוירס על יבי המים פורס ואידן הפיירס ודשנוסם והוא עשווה והרוס מוירס בהיפך לרוב. So he said, I don't understand how there was not one person in the whole Mitzrayim that could figure out a simple translation for the dream apart it. They're really the 2 dreams are really going to the same thing. First, you need cows to plow and plant, and then you have the shibolim, that from the shibolim you cut it and you make flour and you make bread and cookies. Why? As we said before, as the Rebbe says, doesn't make sense it should be 7 days, because things don't grow in a day. Usually it's once a year. What was the unbelievable chokhmah and the Ruach HaKodesh that the Ruach Elikim boy, that Pari realized, that Pari said, that this guy has Ruach Elikim and he has Ein Chochem v'Novim Kamoich. Hine kol Oved Hashem Yifter Oisakei. L'choyde, anyone could make the same person. Umili loy.
I
don't know.
Mistake.
It could be. Umilo yeda b'kolelo shaporis hatevis v'shabolam hatevis moirim al tzava v'harois moirim al arov. Ve'eich noyalu. Sare tsoyim v'chachme poytzei pari mohoven hadover aposhut. Umaro pari mipnei apisim and amavur ezev atzmei lasas li Yosef yekor gdula lekore novam v'cholchem v'chiruach elekim kadishim bei. Exactly the question that we just asked. What was so brilliant, and why can no one figure it out? He goes into a whole thing about three types of dreams. Dreams that are meaningless, that have a spiritual intuition, and godly dreams. How are you supposed to know if you woke up in the morning and you have and you're thinking about a dream? How do you know what kind of dream, which category it is? I'll tell you two signs. With this, tomorrow morning when you have a dream, Barbara says, I'll give you exact two ingredients. From this, you'll know if it's a chopped liver dream, if it's an intuition dream, or it's a heavenly dream. Okay? Umuchen yoyre alma sheyoyre amna chalemes hashav yavoy mibli seder mibulbolim mimiru dvarim zarim mimenu kamay meshloima keba chalom beroiv inye. A heavenly dream is organized. A silly dream, trolled. Oisa beis ka chalom chalemes hatzoytkin yargish beatzmai. Hispilus godel. Vatitpoim ruche. Mashalo yispol ma dimyoinim hakoizim. Kamoish hachaloim anavuim yasa roishim hispilus otzim benefesh hanovi. Kamoish kosav ahoye belibi ke'esh boyeres. Mashalo yasa kol kach roishim hachaloim hatzoydek habilti navui. There could be that there's a chaloim hatzoydek, but bilti navui. There could be bilti navui. So if it's a built-in Navui, the spoilers will not be so strong. But if Navui, the spoilers will be strong. But it poem ruchi.
Emotional spoilers?
I'm not sure if it's no, I don't think that's what it means. It doesn't mean scare, excitement. It means the spoilers like wow. And it's like wow. Oh, yes.
You couldn't sleep.
But Rashi touch what the poem ruchve, whatever it means. But he's saying what the poem is like a certainly spilus, like this is the person feels that this is true. The person feels it's true. Omna piserni Yosef hine tedem alotzim b'shlemas hasogem v'adegusim b'rach hakodesh mashomeri hin kvar biarte shechlom hatzedek hu shefa magia menefesh hagalgol masech l'nivdel m'pas ashor elikis l'nefesh odem beis hashina shelo yakvu hamuchshim v'hasokem agashim medvekusei l'fi shoya dais datem kedasa filosofim shadvorim sheyedu b'chalom em dvorim protim hamasiachsim tomid l'choylem l'kroivov oy imei והגימל שהפורס והשבולים שלו הפער מושל ופיקל לדברים אחרים כל יוסף מספל ופועל המדם החוש ויוסף חיתו והמשול לדברים אחרים באחר בני זה הפורס משבע בונס את המוילת שבע בונס את הכוי ובניין הפורס בניין השבולים שבע הפרחס את הכוי ושבע הפרחס ימר דבח כמה מרזל בפיפה הזה יוסף מהם שני החלוים שהדברים מגיעים לפערי בפרט ושהפורס השבולים מחיקו משולים לדברים אחרים. Bottom line is, they didn't believe that this was a godly message, maybe a spiritual intuition, but what could Pari be thinking about? Himself. So it had to do with Pari. But Yosef beruach hakodesh evin, shahoya emes behepa kol zeh, shehine achalem Pari ekadu, v'meyoy shehikitz ben taim, v'pnei shenipoim bruchim, et choyzek ha-shefa megia elav, v'nifsek chaloim, v'chen evi shoy achalem ahu, chaydoa lekis, Loila Pari Atzme Befrat Kim Laskiach Al Kol Aretz Mitzrayim V'gam Al Kol Arotzes Asher Sviv Esem Shelo Yikorsu Berov. That was the brilliance of Yosef. This is very nice for the Bar Benel. So the bottom line is the Bar Benel says that this Yosef understood that this dream was a heavenly dream. He understood this. And if you add to this what some of the Rishonim say, that Rambam mentions, that he really hid some details from him, so he saw that Yosef has Ruach HaKodesh. And Yosef's thought was that this was not about selfish. It's not selfish. It was something from the Eibishter, and probably from the Eibishter to Pare. It's something that's to help the whole country and also the countries around. The Rebbe says very nice for the Barbanel. The Barbanel style is to rationalize stories, very nice, but that's not Pshat. Pshat, the Rashi had seven, the Chalom, the Malachim going up and down, the Atudim Brudim, Atudim Brudim, Kudim the Kudim Brudim. Is Poshet, the Malachim are schlepping the. This is, and if Rashi thought any of this was the Pshat, Rashi would say it. So here's the Rebbe's Pshat. Taka Bekitz and Nimritz.
Was a Halom or
Yeah, he ate it b'chaloim, and that was Taka. What was happening? The Malachim were schlepping the tzayim from here to there. Bekitzer, the Pshat. What's the Bekitzer? The Rebbe's Pshat.
Yaakov's dreams were actual reality.
No, he's saying in Rashi, by Rashi, we don't find such complicated things. We find that every chaloim was, malachim going up, malachim, malach eretz Yisrael, malach chutz la'aretz. There was never, he saw sheep, akudim, nekudim, brudim. Yeah, the malachim was schlepping the sheep from here to there.
Why is Rashi saying the stories of bonus? The Rebbe's
No, the Rebbe is saying why it's hard to imagine that the Rashi would accept Bar Benel's Pshat of what the brilliance of Yosef was. It doesn't sound like Pshat, the kid said. It doesn't sound like Pshat.
It's not Rashi's words either.
It's not Rashi's words. Here's the Rebbe's Pshat. Taka, what was the main detail that Paro forgot to tell Yosef, to mention to Yosef? The main detail he forgot to mention to Yosef was that they were standing next to each other. They were standing next to each other. They were standing next to each other. Here is the problem that all the Khartoumim had. Every Khartoum, every one of the Khartoum, the first thing they thought, 7 fat, 7 skinny, 7 good years, 7 bad years, 7 fat years, 7 skinny. Why are they standing next to each other? How could they stand right next to each other? In time, you have 7 years and then you have another 7 years. The 7 years don't stand next to the other 7 years. That's why they could not get their head around it. So therefore they said, Sheva bonus, ata moilid Sheva ata koivet. Why? For a guy like Paroi, who has probably more than one wife, Efrat Mitzrayim, the Shtufim Bezimo, and Efrat, a guy like Paroi Melech Mitzrayim, he has many noshim and many prolakshim. So Bizman Echod, he could be that he is noilid loy, beyoim Echod, 7 daughters, or be'oisa yoim, 7 daughters died, and the anguish of the 7 daughters that died will outdo the pleasure of the 7 daughters that were born. And this Rashi actually thinks was Taka, what the Khartoumim said. Then there's another pshat that the Medrash says that Rashi thinks is already in out of the ballpark. That you capture 7 countries and you lose 7 countries. So in Medrash you could say it, but in pshat, what do you mean? He has there's 14 theaters going on at the same time. And in 7 wars, he's winning. 7, usually kings that are going out on war, Zman Azel, Bois Zman, they do 1 war at a time. So a Medrash could be, it happens sometimes. In Second World War, you had, 25 theaters going on, Bavasakas. In Israel right now, exactly.
Lebanon and Syria.
Yeah, and Yemen and Iraq. Second Zion. And the Medrash Taka. Yeah. So, but Rashi doesn't like it so much, so therefore Rashi says the one and not the other. But this was the ikir that they couldn't get their head around. They couldn't get around how is the 2 things are happening at the same time. Yosef's brilliance was to tell Paroi that he didn't give him an eitzah, an unsolicited advice. He said that you should know that the reason why they were standing together, the Eibishter wants to tell you something. That you have to connect the Sheva Arov and the Sheva Asova. In the 7 years of fat, you have to be busy 24/7, collecting and storing wheat in bags and building huge storage houses. And in the Sheva Shnei Harav, you should distribute the food. So here, this is the Pisra Nachaloim of the 7 standing next to the 7. So he wasn't giving him unsolicited advice. The Ramban says, why is he giving him unsolicited advice? He asked him to translate the Chaloim. Now he's giving him unsolicited advice. It wasn't unsolicited. That's why it's also with Havava Moisiv. That as soon as he tells him, he says, Ve'ata yere fari. Ve'ata. Not ata. Ve'ata. It was all a chelik of the Pisser and HaKaloim. That's why Pari declares, Vayema Pari, and he says, and he says, Ein novim v'chochem. He didn't call him only a poisach. There was a lot of people that understood the Pisser. Practically everyone understood the Pisser. But they couldn't understand how to
opposite.
put the Rubik's Cube together. The chokhmah of Yosef was to put it together, to explain how the 7 and the 7 go together. And that was the Gewalt, of Yosef in the Pisar and HaKaloim. So with this, we answered all the kashas. Number one, Yosef wasn't giving unsolicited advice. He was really being Pisar the Chaloim. This thing that he should collect food, that was a chelik of the Pisar and HaKaloim. And it's taka brilliance that they couldn't figure it out, because how could you have two things that are happening simultaneously? He figured out how the fat and the skinny are simultaneous. And now we understand why he called him a chochem, not a poisa chaloim, because everyone could be poisa, but he had a chokhmah here. So that's the pshat. That's the pshat, al pi pshat, and Rashi. What's the pnimius in Yonah?
That's not a chutzpah for Yosef. He's saying it. It's not
right.
This is the cholam. Let me tell you what to do.
Right.
Let me tell you what to do. This is the
Abishter showed you a dream, and the Abishter is showing Paro what needs to be done. So that's so anyway, this fam fatal kasha pshat and seshint. The whole story. Now, when you'll read tomorrow the Chumash, the whole story starts to make sense.
How come today we have all the technology? We can't keep something more than 6 months, 1 year, finish, it's spoiled. And Yosef already know then
how to keep a tour for so long.
Fresh for 7 years, and for not the
emes is we don't need. You could go, if you remember when there was COVID, Costco was selling these buckets, 144 meals in a bucket, and those meals will last for 50 years.
Huh?
Yeah. I don't see them anymore on the shelves. Does anyone remember seeing them right when you came into Costco? They had them piled up.
The rations.
Yeah, like for the rations from the war. They had them.
They tried to make a scam.
Yeah, Geld. Who's going to ever eat those meals? They sit there. If they were starving to death, Lav Dafka, they'd eat it. But they were selling these buckets, containers.
People fell into the trap and bought it.
Yeah, I mean, they're selling it. They were selling it. People were buying it.
Walmart also has stuff like.
Yeah. They have. You can buy them. They have today. They have emesis. There is a technology. Elamai, we don't need it. Baruch Hashem, that they have all kinds of technologies how to constantly grow things. That we don't need it. But
the time from power is everything was nature.
Right.
There's nothing. There's no refrigerator.
Right. Ashi says that Yosef had a thing he put from the Afar audits, and that preserved it. They had a trick about to preserve it. What's that Rebbe says up Hasidus? Hasidus is brought to mind in the Maimon of Chanukah. Shira Ma'alois, Meshuv Hashem, Meshuv Zinu, Yinu Kafilm. Golus is like a dream. Why is Golus like a dream? What happens in a dream? Things that don't make sense happen in a dream. Person dies, a minute later he gets up, he screws his head onto his shoulders and gets it, starts walking. But in Acholim, opposite things could happen. They can go together, things that don't make sense. Dream, yeah? A dream could be very weird. It could be opposite things. Alter Rebbe says in the Golus things that don't make sense. How could it be that a person had Avos Hashem and the same thing a person has Torah for Maso Mati? How could you be Torah? If you daven and you feel bitochen on the Eibishter v'ani eftach boch, so what's the worry? Why are you worried about anything in this world? You should be walking around a happy person. He spoke about it.
Like if you have $1 million in the bank.
That Chassidim Emes were happy people. So we come to this, that a person is davening and he davens and he Be'emes experiences Avos Hashem, and noch in Tefillah mitten amol the Tirgis, the Daigis, and Pchodim. How could it be such a thing? So what's going on? Something is not.
It's a Cholam that doesn't make sense.
It doesn't make sense. So a person. So the Maimon says there's two things. On the one hand, the person says, maybe my avodas Hashem is not so true. If I really had Avos Hashem, if I really had bitochen, then I wouldn't have such daigas. I wouldn't have such tears. So it's a shema minod that my avodas Hashem is lacking. However, that's the union of Golus. The Alter Rebbe says that the shoydish of Golus is the shoydish of a dream is from a very deep place. Just like we said, some dreams are narish and some dreams are very deep. The emes is every dream has both, has narishkeit and very. The shoydish of a halom is mepchinas igulim. What happened? Why does a person dream and have opposites? Because the koyach haseichel is not running his brain. So things that don't make sense could go together. But when the koyach haseichel is back in his brain, so his koyach hadimyan can't cook a cholm together because a normal person tell the difference of fact and fiction. A person that's still dealing with mental illness in an extreme way can't tell the difference. But a person who has seichel, but tell between fact, that's the union of Yosher. That's not igulim. This, that. This makes sense. This doesn't make sense. Pchinas igulim l'malyusa is that everything goes together in one big circle. From the Pchinas igulim l'malyusa comes igulim l'greyusa. So a person thinks that this doesn't make sense. Here I say Krishma Shalamita, I daven, I bench the Yishmak, and here all of a sudden I have Daigis and Tirdas. So what's going on? So I'm a phony baloney. My davening is not a true davening. But be'emes bepnimius like the Alter Rebbe is your davening is a good davening. And in a perfect world, it doesn't make sense what's going on over here. Are you aniyeftach boch, or you're full of dagas v'tirdas? Which one? It can't be one and the other within 24 hours span. But bechinas igulim could be a chaloim. It could be a chaloim. In this world, in Golus, there's bechinas igulim. Yosef HaTzadik is a poiser, the toifer. The words poiser is also toifer. He could needle together afochim. So that was the brilliance of Yosef, also Pipshat, that there was two opposites, Rov and Sova, that are supposed to be together. How do they go together? He figured it out. Just like in Pshat, he figured it out. How could there be the 7 fat years and skinny years together? No, because in the fat years, you'll store the food, and the skinny years, you'll distribute that food. So the fat and the skinny are together. The same thing, a Yid comes to Yosef HaTzadik, who is Poisach Cholam, V'toifer Cholam. He helps a Yid says, Rebbe, I said, Ani Eftach Boch, and then I have Daigis V'tirdas. It's in 24 hours. So I'm a faker, shaker, baker. My avodas Hashem is hollow. So Yosef HaTzadik says, don't worry, I'm going to be Poisach Cholam. I'll show you that this is really Mepchinas Igulim, and I'll show you that your avodas Hashem is a emes avodas Hashem. I'll show you the nekudas emes in your avodas Hashem. That's the mile of Yosef HaTzadik. Just like in Pshat, Yosef HaTzadik was able to figure out the 7 fat and skinny years, how they could be at the same time. He figures out for a Yid who is despondent and has avodas Hashem, and there's good reason to be despondent, that he says that here I say Baruch HaGever sheyiftach b'Hashem v'oy Hashem iftachi, by benching with unbelievable kavana, and then all of a sudden I'm scared pen yachzeh lachmoi, and it's all within one day's work. Yosef Hashem Machabed. He shows him the nekudas emes. Maybe shall help that we should come to the days of Lo Yikon Avoid Merechav, and then we'll say, we'll see the whole Cholam of Golus, that was that Golus was Bara Cholam, and we'll see the Maila that was in the Cholam of Golus.
How could skinny eat fat and still stay skinny?
That's Shmang know it's a dream. It's not part of it as a Cholam. It's the skinny shot. That's the skinny shot. It's from that Dimyan Parua that there's such a thing called a skinny shot. The Zempic. It comes from this Mishigas called Zempic. But Emes is an Ishkin Emes. It's from Khartoum in Mitzrayim.
So all the redeemers behind all the centuries and the blood libels and the Balloons, all the Cholim, right?
There's all the Cholim, right? That says Oitz Hashem can have to be, right?
It didn't exist. No Jew got killed. No Jew got murdered.
Right, we're going to see it's a Cholim. Yeah. The Yinuka Cholim. Okay, and thank you anyone that's